Doctor, she's waking up. The room immediately fell silent. Ryan Hayes stood frozen beside the hospital bed. Outside the intensive care unit, dozens of executives from Whitmore Group waited anxiously. Inside, the woman lying on the bed slowly opened her eyes. Olivia Carter, 30 years old, youngest CEO in Whitmore Group history, known throughout the business world as the Ice Queen. 3 days earlier, her car had been hit by a speeding truck. The surgery had succeeded, but she hadn't woken up until now. Ryan had stayed beside her every single night, not because anyone asked him to, because he couldn't leave. Her eyelashes fluttered. She looked around slowly. The doctor smiled. "Miss Carter, can you hear me?" She blinked. "Yes." "Excellent. Do you know your name?" Silence. She frowned slightly. She looked confused. "I don't remember." The doctor's expression became serious. "What about this?" He held up a photograph of Whitmore Group headquarters. She stared blankly. "No." "What about your company?" "No." "The year?" She slowly shook her head. "I don't know." The doctor quietly wrote something on the chart. "Temporary retrograde amnesia." Ryan stepped forward carefully. "Olivia." Her eyes slowly moved toward him. For a long moment, she simply looked at his face. Very quietly, as though searching through a dream. Ryan forced a small smile. "It's okay. You don't have to remember immediately. I'm Ryan." Before he could finish, Olivia suddenly reached out, grabbed his sleeve, then smiled. A tiny, gentle, completely unfamiliar smile. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Husband." The room stopped breathing. Ryan froze. "What?" The doctor blinked. The nurses exchanged shocked looks outside the glass wall. The executives simultaneously stood up. Olivia looked at Ryan again, this time with complete certainty. "There you are. I've been looking for you." Ryan's heartbeat stopped. Dr. Evans quickly checked her neurological responses again. "Miss Carter, who is this man?" She looked confused by the question. "My husband," she answered as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. Dr. Evans turned toward Ryan. "Mr. Hayes." Ryan immediately raised both hands. "I swear I'm not," Olivia frowned. "You forgot?" Ryan almost laughed from panic. "No, you forgot." She gently squeezed his hand. "It's all right. I still remember." Every doctor in the room looked at Ryan. Ryan wanted to disappear. 20 minutes later, Dr. Evans called Ryan into his office. "The scan looks encouraging." Ryan nodded distractedly. "So why does she think I'm her husband?" The doctor leaned back thoughtfully. "Memory loss isn't always complete. Sometimes the brain keeps emotional memories while factual memories disappear." Ryan frowned. "I don't understand." The doctor smiled. "Imagine forgetting every book you've ever read, but remembering your favorite sentence." Ryan slowly looked toward Olivia's room. "So she doesn't remember her company?" "No, her family." "No," but the doctor folded his arms. "She remembers loving someone." Ryan's throat tightened, and somehow your face matches that memory. Meanwhile, Olivia was sitting quietly on the hospital bed. Mia entered carefully. "CEO." Olivia looked up. "Who are you?" "I'm Mia, your secretary." Olivia smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." Mia almost cried. 3 years. 3 years working beside Olivia. Now she was a stranger. Then Olivia suddenly asked, "Where's my husband?" Mia blinked. "Ryan?" Olivia nodded immediately. "Yes, he was just here." Mia hesitated. "He went to speak with the doctor." Olivia lowered her eyes. "Oh, he looked worried." Mia smiled softly. "He is." Olivia looked out the window. "I don't want him to worry. I'll get better so he can smile again." Mia froze. That sentence was exactly what Olivia had once whispered after watching Ryan fall asleep in his office. She had said it years ago when she believed no one could hear. That evening, Ryan returned to her room carrying dinner. Olivia's face immediately brightened. "There you are." He smiled awkwardly. "Hi." She patted the chair beside her. "Come sit." He obeyed. She looked at the food, then at him. "Husband." Ryan closed his eyes. "Ryan." She tilted her head. "Husband Ryan." He couldn't help laughing. "I suppose that's progress." She smiled proudly. "I remembered your name." He sighed. "You invented half of it." She reached over, carefully, took his hand, then whispered something that made his heart completely lose control. "I don't remember anything except that I trust you." Ryan looked into her clear eyes. There was no calculation, no CEO mask, no distance, only absolute sincerity. The woman who had once terrified billionaires now looked at him with complete dependence. Outside the room, Dr. Evans quietly closed the door. He looked toward Mia. I've treated memory loss patients for 20 years. Mia looked up and the doctor smiled. I've never seen someone forget the whole world and still remember exactly who her heart belongs to. Inside the room, Olivia leaned lightly against Ryan's shoulder, completely unaware that the man she kept calling husband had spent the last 3 years secretly wishing she actually would. Ryan didn't correct her. Not immediately, mostly because every time he tried, Olivia would look at him with those clear, trusting eyes, then quietly ask, "Did we argue?" His heart softened every single time. The next morning, Ryan arrived with breakfast. The moment the door opened, Olivia smiled. "There you are." She had been awake for nearly an hour. The nurse laughed. "She's been asking for you every 5 minutes." Ryan looked surprised. "Really?" Olivia looked completely serious. "I thought you got lost." He couldn't help smiling. "It's a hospital. There are signs." She nodded thoughtfully. "I know, but you're terrible with directions." Ryan blinked. "Am I?" "I think so." She frowned slightly. "I don't know why. I just know." The doctor quietly made another note. Procedural emotional memory remains intact. Ryan unpacked breakfast. Oatmeal, fruit, and coffee. Olivia looked at the coffee, then pushed it back toward him. "You drink it. What about you? You always needed more." Ryan stared. "How do you know that?" She shrugged innocently. "I don't remember, but I know I always worried about you." His fingers tightened slightly around the paper cup. Halfway through breakfast, a knock sounded. The hospital room suddenly filled with people. The board of directors, senior executives, department heads. Flowers almost covered the entire room. The chairman stepped forward. "Olivia." She smiled politely. "Hello?" He sighed in relief. "You're awake." "I am." She looked around. "I'm sorry. I don't remember anyone." The atmosphere became heavy until she reached for Ryan's sleeve almost instinctively, then looked at everyone else. "I'm sorry. I only remember my husband." Silence. Absolute silence. The finance director almost dropped his flowers. The legal director coughed so hard he nearly choked. Ryan immediately spoke. "She's confused." Before he could explain further, Olivia quietly intertwined her fingers with his, then looked at the chairman. "Grandpa." The old man's eyes widened. "You remember me?" She smiled. "No, I guessed. You look kind." The chairman laughed through unexpectedly wet eyes. "You guessed correctly." Then he looked at Ryan very slowly, very thoughtfully. Ryan suddenly had a terrible feeling. The chairman walked over, placed one hand on Ryan's shoulder, then said, "Take good care of her." Ryan froze. "Chairman." He lowered his voice. "I think you've misunderstood." The chairman smiled mysteriously. "Have I?" Ryan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That afternoon, the doctor requested more cognitive tests. "Miss Carter." He placed several photographs on the table. "What do you see?" She pointed. "Office, building, car." Then, she stopped. The final photograph showed Ryan standing beside her during last year's annual charity gala. She picked it up gently, smiled. "My favorite." Ryan looked surprised. "You don't even remember where it was taken." "I don't," but she touched the corner of the photo. "I remember feeling safe." The doctor quietly nodded, then placed another photograph beside it, a magazine cover. Olivia alone, standing confidently in front of Whitmore Tower. She looked at it for several seconds. Nothing, no feeling. The doctor turned another page in his notebook. "Interesting." Ryan frowned. "What?" The doctor spoke carefully. "She has almost no access to autobiographical memory." But he looked toward the photograph Ryan was holding. "Her emotional memory connected to you is unusually strong." Later that evening, Ryan stepped into the hallway to answer a phone call. Mia followed him. "You look exhausted." "I am." She handed him a bottle of water. "Ryan, can I ask you something?" "Of course." She hesitated. "You've loved her for 3 years." He smiled bitterly. "Was it that obvious to everyone except the two of you?" He sighed. "I never planned to tell her." "I know." So Mia looked through the glass window. Olivia was sitting quietly on the bed, looking toward the door, waiting. "Are you going to tell her now?" Ryan followed her gaze. No. Why? Because he smiled softly. I don't want her first memory to begin with a lie. Inside the room, Olivia noticed him through the window. She immediately climbed out of bed barefoot, ignoring the nurse calling after her. Ryan looked up just in time. Olivia, she ran toward him, then stopped directly in front of him. Her breathing was uneven. You left. I only answered the phone. You didn't tell me. I'm sorry. She lowered her eyes. I thought you were coming back. Ryan's expression softened immediately. He gently brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I'm here. I know. She looked up, then quietly slipped both hands around his arm. Don't leave without telling me again. He smiled. I won't. Promise. I promise. She finally relaxed, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. The nurse standing nearby smiled. They're adorable. Ryan opened his mouth to explain. The nurse continued, newlyweds are always like this. Ryan looked helplessly toward Mia. Mia simply smiled. I'm not helping. That night, long after Olivia had fallen asleep, Ryan sat alone beside her hospital bed. Moonlight spilled across the room. He looked at her sleeping face, then quietly whispered, I wish I really were your husband. He thought she couldn't hear him. He was wrong. Though her eyes remained closed, a tiny smile appeared on Olivia's lips. Almost as if some part of her heart had been waiting 3 years to hear exactly those words. 3 days later, Dr. Evans smiled as he reviewed Olivia's latest scans. The swelling has gone down. Ryan finally relaxed. So, she can go home? The doctor nodded. Yes, but he glanced toward Olivia, who was happily peeling an orange. Someone needs to stay with her. Ryan nodded immediately. I'll arrange a private nurse. Olivia looked up. I don't want one. The doctor smiled patiently. You'll need someone. I already have someone. She pointed without hesitation. My husband. Ryan nearly dropped the medical report. Olivia. She blinked. What? I'm not. She frowned. You're not. Ryan hesitated. Before he could finish, Dr. Evans quietly interrupted. Mr. Hayes. Ryan looked over. Walk with me outside the room. The doctor closed the door gently, then lowered his voice. You still haven't corrected her. Ryan sighed. I've tried every time. And she looks heartbroken. The doctor nodded knowingly. That's normal. Patients with emotional memory loss often cling to the person their brain considers safest. Ryan rubbed his forehead. So, what should I do for now? Don't force reality. Ryan frowned. You mean? The doctor smiled. Let her recover naturally. Besides, he glanced through the glass wall. Olivia was already looking for Ryan again. I have a feeling she isn't mistaken. Ryan looked confused. What do you mean? The doctor smiled mysteriously. I think her heart remembered something before her brain did. An hour later, Ryan drove Olivia home. Except they arrived at the penthouse. Olivia stood at the entrance looking around. This is our house. Ryan unlocked the door. He hesitated. Your apartment? She tilted her head. Our apartment? He didn't answer. She took that as a yes. The apartment was spotless, modern, elegant, almost too quiet. Olivia slowly walked through the living room. Her fingertips brushed the piano, the bookshelves, the large floor-to-ceiling windows. None of it felt familiar until she entered the kitchen. She suddenly stopped. Ryan noticed immediately. What is it? She frowned slightly. I remember. What? Someone standing here. She closed her eyes. Making coffee. Ryan's heartbeat skipped. That had been him. Every morning for 3 years. Without realizing it, her body had remembered. That evening, Ryan cooked dinner. Olivia insisted on helping. 5 minutes later, she had almost dropped a plate, burned a towel, and somehow managed to spill flour on her own face. Ryan laughed. I think the kitchen defeats you. She looked offended. It cheated. He walked over, gently wiped the flour from her cheek with his thumb. There, she looked up at him. Their faces were suddenly very close. So, she whispered, do husbands always do this? Ryan smiled helplessly. I don't know. You don't? I've never been one. She looked genuinely confused. Really? He froze for half a second, then laughed softly. Really? She studied his expression carefully, then nodded. Okay, but you still feel like mine. Ryan looked away before she could see how red his ears had become. That night, Ryan prepared the guest bedroom. He placed fresh blankets on the bed. Just as he was about to leave, a quiet voice came from behind him. "What are you doing?" He turned. Olivia stood in the doorway wearing oversized pajamas. "I'm sleeping here." She frowned. "Why?" "So you can sleep comfortably." She looked even more confused. "But are we married?" Ryan took a slow breath. "Olivia, I think we should sleep separately." She lowered her eyes. "Did I do something wrong?" "No. You don't like me anymore?" His heart immediately softened. "That's not it." She looked ready to cry. "Then why?" Ryan couldn't answer because the real reason was simple. If he slept beside the woman he'd secretly loved for 3 years, he wasn't sure he'd survive it. She stood quietly for a long moment, then turned away. "Okay." Her voice was very small. "I understand." Ryan watched her disappear into the master bedroom for several minutes. The apartment remained silent, then a soft knock. Ryan opened the guest room door. Olivia stood outside holding a pillow. She looked up timidly. "Can I ask one question?" "Of course." "If I have a nightmare, will you come?" Ryan smiled gently. "I'll come," she nodded. And she hesitated. "If you have one, you can come, too." He laughed quietly. "I don't usually have nightmares." She looked at him with complete certainty. "I don't think that's true." He blinked. "What makes you say that?" She reached out very gently. She touched the tiny scar near his wrist. "I don't remember why, but I know someone hurt you once." Ryan looked down at the scar. The scar he got protecting Olivia during a factory inspection 2 years ago. She didn't remember the accident. She didn't remember the blood. She didn't remember crying in the ambulance while holding his hand. And yet, her fingers found the scar immediately. Almost instinctively, Ryan felt his throat tighten. He looked back at her. "You really don't remember?" She slowly shook her head. "No," but she smiled softly. "My heart keeps telling me that if you're hurting, I should be there." Ryan couldn't speak. For the first time since the accident, he began wondering if perhaps love had always been stronger than memory. Ryan woke before sunrise. The apartment was unusually quiet. He prepared breakfast out of habit. Coffee, toast, scrambled eggs. Just as he finished setting the table, he heard soft footsteps behind him. Olivia stood in the doorway. Her hair was still slightly messy from sleep. She wasn't wearing one of her expensive business suits. Instead, she wore one of Ryan's oversized sweaters. The sleeves covered half her hands. She looked nothing like the woman who terrified boardrooms. She looked comfortable. Ryan smiled. "Morning." She smiled back immediately. "Morning. You slept well." "I did." She walked over without thinking. She slipped naturally beside him and rested her chin lightly on his shoulder. "What are we eating?" Ryan froze for half a second, then answered as calmly as he could. "Nothing fancy." She looked at the breakfast, then at him. "It smells like home." His heart skipped. "You've never been here before." "I know." She looked confused herself, but it still feels familiar. After breakfast, Ryan picked up his suit jacket. "I have to stop by the office." Olivia immediately stood. "So do I." He blinked. "No." She frowned. "No. The doctor said you should rest." "I've rested." "You still need more time." She folded her arms. "I don't remember my company." "Exactly. So I should go see it." Ryan opened his mouth, closed it again. She had a point. 30 minutes later, the black sedan stopped outside Whitmore Group headquarters. The moment the employees saw the CEO's car, everyone straightened instinctively. The rear door opened. Ryan stepped out first. Several employees smiled politely. "Good morning, Mr. Hayes." "Morning." Then Olivia stepped out. A collective sigh of relief spread through the crowd. The CEO was back. Thank goodness. But before anyone could approach, Olivia quietly reached for Ryan's hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally. The lobby fell completely silent. Ryan whispered, "Everyone's watching." She looked genuinely puzzled. "So, you usually don't." "I usually don't what? Hold hands at work?" She smiled softly. "I'm not working yet." Then she squeezed his hand once. "I'm walking with my husband." The rumor reached the executive floor before they did. By the time the elevator doors opened, nearly every senior executive was already waiting. Claire smiled first. "It's wonderful to see you again, CEO." Olivia nodded politely. Thank you. Daniel stepped forward. How are you feeling? I'm getting better. Then she asked very seriously, do all of you work with Ryan? The executives exchanged confused looks. Daniel answered carefully, yes, we're colleagues. Olivia smiled with obvious satisfaction. Good. Daniel blinked. Good. She nodded. Then please take care of him. He forgets to drink water. He works through lunch and he pretends he's not tired. The executive slowly turned toward Ryan. Ryan looked horrified. Olivia, what? How do you know those things? She paused, then smiled sheepishly. I don't know. I just know. Mia quietly pulled Ryan aside. I think I understand now. Ryan sighed. What? She may have forgotten her memories, but she didn't forget her habits. What do you mean? Mia smiled. For years, the first thing CEO asked every morning wasn't about the stock market. Ryan looked surprised. It wasn't. She shook her head. It was always, has Ryan eaten breakfast? Ryan stared at her. She asked that every single day. And if you skip lunch, she'd somehow find an excuse to call you into her office so you'd eat. Ryan suddenly remembered the countless urgent meetings, the unexplained lunchboxes, the coffee that always appeared on difficult days. He had thought they were coincidences. They weren't. That afternoon, Olivia insisted on walking through every department. She greeted employees politely, asked questions, listened carefully. She couldn't remember anyone's name. But every few minutes, she instinctively looked over her shoulder, searching until she found Ryan. Only then would she continue walking. Claire quietly laughed. She checks whether you're still there. Ryan smiled softly. I noticed. Claire shook her head. You don't understand. I've worked with her for 6 years. I've never seen her look for anyone. The final stop was the executive conference room. Olivia stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the city. It feels important. Ryan walked over. It is. She turned toward him and asked quietly, did I love this company? You did. She nodded slowly and she looked into his eyes. Did I love you, too? The room became completely silent. Ryan's heart pounded. He could have lied. He could have said yes. He could have protected the fragile hope shining in her eyes. Instead, he smiled gently. I don't know. She looked disappointed for only a second. Then he continued, but I know this. What? The woman I fell in love with always chose honesty over convenience. So I won't steal an answer that your heart deserves to remember on its own. Olivia looked at him for a long time. Then she stepped forward, rested her forehead lightly against his, and whispered, I think my heart already knows. Outside the conference room, Mia quietly closed the door before anyone else could interrupt. She smiled to herself. The CEO had forgotten contracts. She had forgotten shareholders. She had forgotten her own office. But every time she looked for safety, she still found Ryan. And perhaps that was the strongest memory of all. A week passed. Olivia's recovery was faster than anyone expected. She remembered how to read financial reports. She remembered foreign languages. She remembered every executive by name. But one part of her memory remained stubbornly out of reach. Her life with Ryan. Dr. Evans called it selective emotional amnesia. Ryan called it confusing. Olivia called it frustrating. Monday morning. Ryan was making coffee. Olivia stood quietly in the kitchen watching him. What? He asked. She tilted her head. I think I've seen this before. He smiled. You probably have. I don't remember. I know. She frowned slightly. But every morning I feel like I'm supposed to hug you. Ryan almost spilled the coffee. What? She looked genuinely puzzled. Is that strange? He cleared his throat. A little. She thought seriously. Then maybe I was a very affectionate wife. Ryan laughed. You weren't my wife. She blinked. Really? He nodded. We worked together. She looked at him for several long seconds, then smiled. I must have been planning ahead. Later that day, Mia walked into the CEO's office carrying several old files. I thought these might help. Photographs, meeting records, travel schedules. Olivia thanked her. For the next hour, she quietly flipped through the albums, conference photos, award ceremonies, business dinners. Then one picture made her stop. Ryan was standing behind her at an overseas conference. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at him, not casually, not professionally, softly, as though nothing else in the room existed. Olivia touched the photograph. Mia. Yes. Why am I looking at him like this? Mia smiled. Because you always did. One photo became 10, then 20. In every single picture, Ryan appeared somewhere nearby. Holding her coat, opening the car door, passing her coffee, standing quietly behind her during interviews. And every single time, her eyes eventually found him. Even when photographers hadn't noticed. She whispered almost to herself. I followed him. Mia nodded. With your eyes. 4 years. That evening, Olivia searched her office alone. Not for documents, for answers. She opened an old drawer that hadn't been touched since the accident. Inside lay a small leather notebook. No company logo, no financial data, only one title, Ryan. Her heartbeat quickened. She opened the first page. He skipped breakfast again. The second, remember to ask if his mother's back is feeling better. The third, he smiled today after the children from the charity school hugged him. I think his smile is my favorite thing in the world. Olivia's breathing slowed. Page after page. None of it was about business. Every page was about him. Near the end of the notebook, a folded letter slipped onto the floor. She picked it up carefully. The envelope had never been opened. Across the front, written in her own handwriting, were 5 simple words. To Ryan. Someday. Her fingers trembled. She slowly unfolded it. Inside, only one sentence. If I ever find the courage, I'll ask you to marry me. Olivia covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes almost instantly. She whispered. I really loved him. Not a crush, not admiration, not gratitude. Love. Deep, patient, quiet love, the kind that filled entire notebooks. Ryan returned home an hour later. The apartment lights were off. He frowned. Olivia? No answer. His heart immediately tightened. He searched the living room, the balcony, the kitchen. Finally, he found her sitting on the floor of the study. The notebook rested quietly in her lap. She looked up. Her eyes were red. Ryan immediately knelt beside her. What happened? Are you hurt? She slowly shook her head, then held up the notebook. I found this. Ryan recognized it immediately. He had never known it existed. You wrote that? She nodded. I think so. He looked down at the pages. His chest tightened. I never knew. I know. She smiled sadly. I never told you. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Olivia laughed softly through her tears. You know what's embarrassing? What? I've forgotten almost everything, but apparently she looked at the notebook again. I was completely obsessed with you. Ryan couldn't help laughing, too. I wouldn't say obsessed. She raised an eyebrow. I wrote down when you skipped breakfast. That's true. I wrote about your smile. Also true. I wanted to propose first. Ryan smiled. I noticed. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder. So, was I always this shameless? He looked at the woman beside him, the powerful CEO who had once hidden her feelings behind endless meetings. The woman who now blushed reading her own diary. He gently brushed a tear from her cheek. No, you were brave. She looked at him. Really? You love someone without asking for anything in return. She smiled. I don't think that's brave. What is it then? She quietly reached for his hand, then intertwined their fingers. I think it's just loving you. Ryan looked down at their joint hands. For years, he had believed he was the only one secretly in love. Now, he was holding proof that she had been walking the very same road. Just as quietly, just as faithfully. Neither of them noticed the final page still tucked inside the notebook. A page Olivia hadn't reached yet, a page that contained the date, the place, and the engagement ring she'd secretly bought 6 months before the accident. 3 days later, it happened without warning. Ryan was making breakfast. Olivia stood beside him, trying very seriously to fry an egg. She had improved, only slightly. The egg still looked questionable. Ryan laughed. I think this one survived. She looked offended. It has character. Before he could answer, the frying pan slipped. Ryan instinctively reached across to catch it. His hand wrapped around the hot handle. Ryan. He immediately let go. The pan landed safely, but his palm had already turned red. Olivia grabbed his wrist. You're burned. I'm fine. No, you're not. She hurried him to the sink and ran cool water over his hand. Ryan smiled reassuringly. It's only a little red. She wasn't listening. Her fingers trembled. Her breathing grew uneven. The running water. The smell of something burning. Ryan protecting her without thinking. Suddenly, a blinding headache shot through her head. She gasped. The kitchen disappeared. Another memory replaced it. 2 years earlier, a factory inspection. An electrical fire. A metal beam collapsed toward her. Someone shoved her out of the way. Ryan. She remembered the sound of him hitting the ground. The blood. The ambulance. Holding his hand all the way to the hospital, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. She remembered whispering over and over, "Don't leave me." Another memory. A rainy evening. Ryan asleep at his desk after working 16 hours. She quietly covered him with her own coat, then stood there for nearly 5 minutes, simply watching him sleep, smiling to herself. Another, her grandfather. "You like that boy?" She answered without hesitation. "I love him. So tell him." She looked away. "I'm afraid." "Of what?" "He deserves someone who can choose him before the company." Another, the jewelry store. She tried on a simple platinum ring. The saleswoman smiled. "Wedding?" Olivia looked at the ring in the mirror, then smiled quietly. Soon, the memories came faster. Coffee, meetings, birthdays, airport plans, secret diary entries, the proposal letter, every hidden glance, every heartbeat she'd buried beneath work, every ordinary day she'd fallen a little deeper in love. Then the hospital. Opening her eyes, seeing Ryan, calling him husband. The kitchen slowly came back into focus. Ryan looked terrified. "Olivia." She stared at him. For a long moment, she simply stared. He stepped closer carefully. "Talk to me." Her eyes slowly filled with tears. Ryan's heart sank. He forced a smile. "It's okay if your memories came back. Don't worry about the things you said." He laughed softly. "I know you only called me your husband because of the amnesia. I won't make things awkward. You don't have to feel embarrassed." Every word made her cry harder. Ryan panicked. "Olivia, did I say something wrong?" She suddenly stepped forward, wrapped both arms around him, holding him so tightly he could barely breathe. He froze. "Olivia." Her voice shook. "You idiot." He blinked. "What?" "I wasn't mistaken." Silence. She looked up at him. Tears streamed freely down her face. "I remembered everything. The company, my childhood, the accident, my diary, my proposal." She laughed through her tears and she gently touched his cheek. "I remember falling in love with you." Ryan's heartbeat stopped. "You?" She nodded. "I remember all of it." He smiled slowly. Then another thought struck him. "Wait, if you remember everything?" She nodded. "I do." Then his ears slowly turned red. "You also remember?" She smiled mischievously. "Calling you husband." Ryan covered his face. "Yes." She laughed. "I remember every single time I held your hand. I made you stay beside me. I stole your sweaters. I refused to sleep without you nearby." Ryan groaned dramatically. "I was hoping you'd forgotten." She stood on tiptoe, whispered beside his ear. "Not a chance." Then she added with a playful smile. "And honestly, I meant every word." Later that afternoon, Dr. Evans finished the examination. He smiled with satisfaction. "Congratulations. Your memory has fully returned." Ryan looked relieved. "So, she's recovered completely." The doctor closed the medical file. "There's just one interesting thing." Ryan looked up. "What?" The doctor smiled. "Normally, patients forget the period during amnesia, but Miss Carter remembers all of it." Olivia looked at Ryan, then quietly reached for his hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally. Dr. Evans chuckled. "In other words, you now remember loving him twice." Olivia smiled. "No." The doctor looked curious. "What do you mean?" She squeezed Ryan's hand gently. "I only fell in love once." She looked up at Ryan. "My memory disappeared. My heart never did." Ryan couldn't stop smiling. "So, I guess I should stop correcting you." She tilted her head. "Correcting what?" He laughed softly. "The husband part." She smiled with unmistakable affection. "Good," because she slipped her finger through his, pretending to admire an invisible ring. "I've been calling you that for weeks. I'd rather not change the habit." Ryan laughed. "I think I'd like that, too." Outside the hospital, spring sunlight poured through the windows. The accident had stolen Olivia's memories. But somehow it had given them something even more precious, the chance to fall in love with each other all over again. And this time, neither of them intended to waste another day. For the first time in years, Ryan started hiding things from Olivia. Not important things, just tiny secrets. He answered phone calls on the balcony, closed his laptop whenever she walked into the room, disappeared for an hour after work. Olivia noticed on the very first day, she said nothing. On the second day, she noticed Mia smiling every time Ryan's phone buzzed. Still, she said nothing. On the third day, she finally folded her arms. Ryan, are you planning a surprise or joining a secret organization? Ryan nearly laughed. Definitely the first one. So there is a surprise. There is. She narrowed her eyes. Can I know? No. One hint. He smiled. It started before your accident. She blinked. My diary? He simply winked. You'll find out. That Friday evening. Ryan picked Olivia up from work. Don't change. He looked at her navy business suit and smiled. You look perfect. She raised an eyebrow. No evening gown? No. No expensive restaurant? No. Then where are we going? Ryan opened the passenger door. Trust me. She smiled. I always do. 40 minutes later. The car stopped in front of Whitmore General Hospital. Olivia looked surprised. The hospital? Ryan nodded. She frowned. Why are we here? He reached for her hand. Come with me. They entered through the quiet east entrance. The nurses greeted Ryan with warm smiles. One whispered, So, today's the day? Ryan smiled nervously. I hope so. Olivia looked between them. You've all been planning something. Dr. Evans appeared at the end of the hallway. I've been waiting. He smiled at Olivia. Good evening, Miss Carter. Doctor, I have one final treatment. She blinked. I thought I was discharged. You were. This isn't medical. He opened the rooftop door. It's emotional. The rooftop garden overlooked the entire city. Spring flowers lined the pathways. Soft lights had been woven through the trees. In the center stood a simple wooden bench. Olivia stopped walking. She recognized it immediately. This? Ryan nodded. It's the same bench. The one where she had sat every evening during rehabilitation. The one where she once looked at Ryan and whispered, I don't remember anything except that I trust you. She smiled softly. You remembered. I remember everything you said. Ryan reached into his coat pocket. Instead of taking out a ring, he unfolded several pieces of paper. Olivia laughed. Those aren't legal documents, are they? He smiled. No, they're my resignation letters. She blinked. Resignation? I wrote 7 of them. Her smile slowly disappeared. What? The first one? The day I realized I loved my CEO. The second when I thought you were going to marry someone else. The third. After I decided loving you from a distance was enough. He looked down at the stack. I never submitted any of them. Why? Because every time I tried, you'd ask me if I'd eaten lunch. She laughed through forming tears. So I stayed. You stayed again and again. He nodded. I kept telling myself. One more day. Olivia quietly reached into her handbag. I have something, too. Ryan looked curious. She pulled out the worn leather notebook. Her diary. She opened to the final page, the one she hadn't read before. A pressed white daisy rested between the pages. Beneath it, written in her elegant handwriting, if he ever smiles at me the way he smiles at everyone else, I'll ask him to marry me. Ryan stared at the page. You bought the ring first. I did. You planned to propose. I did. You waited for too long. She smiled. I thought I needed the perfect moment. Ryan shook his head gently. There isn't one. No perfect moment. He stepped closer. Is simply when two people stopped waiting. He finally took out a small velvet box. Inside rested a platinum ring. Simple, elegant. On the inside, 4 words were engraved. You remembered me. Olivia's eyes immediately filled with tears. Ryan looked directly into them. When you lost your memories, I thought I'd lost my chance. When you called me husband, I wanted to believe it, but I was afraid. Afraid you'd wake up. Look at me and remember I was only your assistant. He smiled. I was wrong. You remembered something much more important. What? You remembered us. Olivia's tears fell freely now. He took a slow breath. So this time, I don't want an accident. I don't want confusion. I don't want fate making decisions for us. He lowered himself onto one knee. Olivia Carter, my impossible first love, my favorite miracle, my safest place, my home. He opened the ring box completely. Will you really let me become the husband you've been calling me all this time? For one heartbeat, the world became silent. Then Olivia laughed through tears. You know what's unfair? Ryan smiled. What? You stole my proposal. I did. I spent months planning mine. I know. She wiped her eyes. So now I'll just have to answer yours. She reached for the ring before Ryan could slide it onto her finger. She caught his hand. No. He blinked. What? We do this together. She took the ring from the box, placed it gently in his palm, then extended her left hand. Ryan, you've already been my husband in my heart long before my memory disappeared. She smiled with all the warmth he dreamed of for 3 years. So, yes. Yes, I'll marry you. And yes, I'll keep calling you husband. Ryan laughed, his own eyes shining. I was hoping you would. With slightly trembling fingers, he slipped the ring onto her hand. It fit perfectly, as if it had always belonged there. Behind the rooftop door, applause suddenly erupted. Mia, Dr. Evans, the chairman, Claire, Daniel, even several nurses who had watched their story from the very beginning. Mia wiped away a tear and laughed. I guess we can finally stop pretending. Dr. Evans folded his arms with a satisfied smile. I told you the heart remembered first. Olivia leaned into Ryan's arms. He kissed her forehead gently. This time when she whispered the word husband, he didn't correct her. He simply answered with a smile, yes, wife. 6 months later, the wedding wasn't held in a castle, nor in the grand ballroom of a 5-star hotel. It took place in the rooftop garden of Whitmore General Hospital. The very place where Olivia had learned to walk again. The very place where Ryan had finally asked her to marry him. Dr. Evans had offered to reserve the entire rooftop. There are prettier places, Ryan had said. There are. Olivia had agreed, but none of them gave us a second chance. So, they returned exactly where their new beginning had started. The guests were many. Ryan's mother sat in the front row with a handkerchief already in her hands. Chairman Carter smiled more than anyone had ever seen him smile. Mia carried the rings. Claire kept pretending she wasn't crying. Even the nurses who had cared for Olivia attended after their shifts. This feels strange. One nurse whispered. What does? We're watching 2 people who technically became husband and wife before they even started dating. Dr. Evans laughed. Medicine can't explain everything. No, it certainly can't. Ryan waited beneath a white flower arch for the first time in years. He wasn't wearing an employee badge, no assistant notebook, no company phone, only a simple navy suit. His hands were shaking. Daniel nudged him gently. Nervous? A little. You've negotiated billion-dollar contracts. Ryan smiled. They don't smile at you like Olivia does. Daniel looked toward the entrance. Fair point. Soft music began to play. Everyone stood. Olivia appeared at the end of the aisle. She wore a simple ivory dress. No heavy jewelry, no glittering crown, just the engagement ring Ryan had placed on her finger. She wasn't walking with investors or bodyguards. She walked with Ryan's mother. Halfway down the aisle, Ryan's mother stopped. She gently placed Olivia's hand into Ryan's, then smiled. I've been waiting to do that. Ryan looked confused. What? She laughed softly. The first day I spoke to her on the phone. I already knew. Ryan smiled. You couldn't possibly. She shook her head. A mother knows. Olivia quietly hugged her before stepping forward, then whispered. Thank you, Mom. Ryan's mother kissed her forehead. My daughter. The officiant smiled warmly. I've married many couples, but this one. He looked at Ryan. Already argued over breakfast. Everyone laughed. He looked at Olivia. Already survived memory loss. More laughter. And he smiled. Already spent weeks calling each other husband and wife. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. We were a little ahead of schedule. Olivia grinned. I prefer efficient planning. The ceremony was simple. When it came time for the vows, Ryan folded away the paper he had prepared. Olivia looked surprised. You memorized them? He shook his head. I changed my mind. I only want to say one thing. He looked directly into her eyes. The first time you called me husband, I thought it was the accident talking. I spent weeks wishing that word were real. He smiled. I never imagined that your heart had been saying it long before your lips ever did. Olivia's eyes shimmered with tears. He gently took her hand. So today, when you call me that, I'll spend the rest of my life answering. When it was Olivia's turn, she unfolded a single sheet of paper. Ryan recognized it immediately. The old diary page. The one that had never been sent. She smiled. I wrote this before the accident. I was too afraid to give it to you. She looked down and read aloud. If he ever smiles at me the way he smiles at everyone else. She stopped, then laughed softly. I was very foolish. Ryan frowned playfully. Why? Because she looked up. You'd been smiling at me from the very beginning. She folded the paper carefully, then spoke without looking at it again. I lost my memories. I forgot my company, my office, my achievements, my name. She reached up and gently touched Ryan's cheek. But when I opened my eyes, I looked at you and my heart spoke before my mind could. Her voice became quieter. It whispered, husband. Silence filled the rooftop. Even the wind seemed to pause. She smiled through happy tears. My brain forgot. My heart never did. The officiant cleared his throat gently. I think there's only one thing left. Ryan smiled. I know. They exchanged rings. This time, no confusion, no accident, no pretending, only promises. The officiant raised his hands. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Ryan laughed. We've heard that before. Olivia laughed too, but this time it's official. You may kiss the bride. He did slowly, tenderly, as if he had all the time in the world. Because now he truly did. That evening, long after the guests had gone home, Ryan and Olivia returned to the now empty hospital room where everything had begun. The bed was gone. The machines were gone. Only sunlight lingered near the window. Olivia stood where the hospital bed had once been. She closed her eyes. I remember waking up. Ryan stood beside her. What do you remember first? She smiled. I remember thinking, I don't know my name. I don't know this room. I don't know the world. She opened her eyes and looked at him, but I know him. Ryan intertwined his fingers with hers. And now. She leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. Now I know everything. She smiled. My favorite memory is still the very first one. Ryan raised an eyebrow. The hospital? She shook her head. No. She looked at him with the same warmth that had once surprised an entire ICU. My favorite memory is the moment I looked at you and accidentally told the truth. Ryan laughed softly. You mean? She nodded. Husband. He kissed her forehead. Wife. Outside the hospital, spring sunlight bathed the city in gold. People hurried past, unaware that one extraordinary love story had begun with a single forgotten memory. Some said fate had brought them together. Others believed it was coincidence. Ryan knew better. Because the greatest miracle had never been that Olivia forgot the world. It was that even after forgetting everything else, she still remembered where her heart belonged. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.